Hey YouTube, Corlash1990 here, and today I have another Dark Age Feudal Lords CCG deck profile, and this one is for my Undercity deck. So first, I'll go a little more in depth with this one compared to my last video. So I am running the Scar Gang leader. Basically, she specializes in sending things in to attack versus the other one where it specializes in actually bringing things into play. And this deck, I gave it a theme of task rolls, which task rolls are rolls that you do with the dice that are generated from the character's abilities and such. So it says once per combat, you may make a task roll on a 4+. You may extend combat by 1 round of close combat. So you can do more close combat over and over and over again. And this deck is more close combat based, where my last one was more range based as well. So that is the leader. And for the location I chose, is it this? Yeah, it's this way. Is the acid tunnels, the energy core, and what is it? The gymnasium. Yeah. So supporting characters gain +1 to their. I think it's shielding. I could be wrong on that one. And lone attackers and lone defenders gain frenzy, so they keep going even if they take damage to die. And rolls separately for all combatants' weapons. On a 5+, discard the weapon before combat, which is pretty good. This deck has some weapons, but it's not super weapon intensive. And then now for all the characters. And again, I max out on the ones that I have. I'm missing some of them, but I would say a good chunk of the deck is characters, which in this game you kind of want a lot of characters anyway. So we will start with the Scar Gang. Yeah. Start with the Scar Gang characters. And so to start things off, we have Excite. So you can only run one of him, which is unfortunate because he's really easy to bring into play and to send out to do anything. You can't really hit like the broadside of a barn, but it's great to just be able to have characters to play. And in this game, you don't have to keep things to their like affiliations and whatnot. I could run this in my other deck, but just for thematic reasons, I like keeping all the gangs to themselves. And his ability doesn't necessarily matter all that much. And then next we have Excess, and she's a little more difficult to put out. She has no skills, but I mean, three's not. It's not too bad. Again, the ability doesn't necessarily matter. Next, I play for Pyro, and Pyro's great. He's got 2 life, 4 control, so it's controls a little much, but he hits pretty well, and he can have 2 weapons, which is kind of cool if you want to run a lot of weapons. And then to round things off for them, I have 4 Looter. Looter's probably the best character outside of this guy. But again, Looter you can have has a little triangle, so you can have 4 copies of it. Just easy to put out, easy to control, even easier to send out with the leader. And whenever you sack a location, so basically if you do damage to a location, which is the whole point of the game, the defending player loses 1 leadership for each looter you have in your attack. So if you have like 2 or 3 of them, it could be pretty devastating. And then next I have the what is this? Is it bad? But yeah, the bad doctors. Yeah, there we go. So I have 1 blessing. Again, controls a little much. Love the artwork. Then again, the artwork for every card in this game is great. Hits pretty well. And if a character in Blessing's combat pool is killed, you may make a task roll. So fitting in with the whole task roll theme. On a 5+, the character gains frenzy, so it can attack again even though it died. And then Grafter. A little easier to bring out. Again, for characters you can't have multiple of, you're going to expect a higher control for them. And then also, once per turn, when Grafter is in play, you may play a weapon to a character who does not have room for one on a task roll 3+. So again, more task rolling. And then Venosa, weird name. This one, I'm not really too fond of the artwork of. It doesn't really fit the gritty theme. It's a little too clean looking for me. But whenever it scores a hit in the defense, or what is it, DF? I wish they would just abbreviate things a lot better in this game. Anyway, whenever it scores a hit, the target combatant takes a wound as normal and is -3 to hit, and the -3 shielding, all that other good stuff, which is pretty good. And then Patcher, I run 4 of them. I think I'm missing some Bad Doctor cards. I think I am. Maybe like a rare or something. But Patcher's great. Again, it hits well. And when Patcher's in play, you may add a skill to a character who doesn't have room for 1 on a task roll of 3, so it kind of fits the theme of that other card. And then finally, for the Undercity is the Hoodoo guys, and these guys are, all their artworks are pretty cool too. So this is Fiend, again, harder to bring out, but pretty solid stats. And in DF, it gets 7 to its shielding, and Fiend is +1 to range attack and melee attack and defense versus these guys really don't like the there's outer, under, and I think all city, and I think that's them, which are like the forms of like police and whatnot for this world, from what I understand. And then we also have Grinner. Again, great artwork. I love how like creepy it is, and this like saw blade on like a staff. Pretty decent stats. And when it's in play, add +1 to your draft rolls for all your Undercity characters. So another really, really good character for the deck. And then we run 4 Initiate of the Merc. This is standard character, no abilities, decent to hit in melee. And we also have 4 Acolyte. High control, good hitting stats though. And the Acolyte CC hit 10 is unblockable, so it just straight up does damage. And that is all of the characters for the deck. Pretty straightforward. Again, I take all the Undercity characters and I run the max that I can of them outside of the special characters where you can only have 1 in play. Next, I will go over the weapons and the skills. And I play a few more skills in this one than I do in my other deck. I do have weapon cards. Mainly, it's for toolkit. I run 4 toolkits, and it can only it goes on a Bad Doctor card, and it can reroll a failed task roll for 1 supply, which is one of your forms of resources, which is supplies what you use to play like your weapons and stuff. And the other one is what you use to play characters. So those are pretty fitting. And I run Bobby Gun just to add more of the close combat attacking potential. And that's it for the weapons right there. This one, again, I run more skills. So Field Medic is a healing card when you roll a good task roll. This one gives it +1 at melee attack if it has no weapons, because we don't really play that many. And Bluff is the combatant, is +1 close combat attack and shield for the first round, but gains -1 hit and shield during the second round of combat. So that is all of those. And then to round the deck off, we have all of our instant cards. So I run 3 of the Heal Pouch. It's a heal card when you do it's not a task roll technically, but you just roll, and if you roll above a 2, you get to remove damage, which is pretty good, because damage stays forever in this game. I run 2 of the Red Fungus Injection. Goes on a Bad Doctor card. Again, it's a task roll, and if you do well, you get to remove more damage. And then Aggression. I run 4 of these. I think this card, from what I remember, is pretty good. I haven't looked at these cards in a little while. Play before a round of close combat. No combatant in target matchup rolls block dice for this round. Armor works as normal. Armor's not very plentiful in this game. It's a weapon card. So typically they're not going to have armor. And it also costs 0 to play. This costs 1, this costs 2, which is pretty costly for supply. But yeah, costing 0, great. Offensive Posture, run 3 of this. I think I would run 4 of this if I owned 4 of them, but I only own 3. Again, great artwork. Love this random pose, and the coloring too is great. It's one of the more colorful cards in this game, actually. Cost 1 to play. Play before any round of close combat. Target combatant is +2 to hit and -2 to block for the remainder of combat. So again, putting in more of that theme with wanting to just punch people's faces in versus the other one where you kind of want to shoot them at a distance. I run 2, Get Shorty. Cost 0. Play after you choose your attack pool, but before you pick a location to attack. Your opponent must declare the defense pool before you choose the location. So the way you attack is you send all your attackers and you choose a location. Then after the location's chosen, they all have different abilities. Your opponent can choose who they get to send in, depending on what the location does, right? So that card forces your opponent to choose all of their blockers before they know what kind of advantage they'll have or not have. And then You Just Try is another one I play. It's 2 of, cost 0. Again, you want to play as many cards that cost 0 as possible, especially with the leadership, because leadership, that's what it's called, leadership, is what you use to bring all your characters in, and you don't really want to be spending leadership on non-character cards, especially when your resources every turn are very random. They're literally, you roll a d6 for each leadership and supply, and those are the resources you get for the turn, which is where these cards come in. But add 1 to your leader's defense send for the remainder of the turn. So it's just a defensive option if it's in there, but typically this deck doesn't really care about defense, but if your opponent's going crazy and sending in a bunch of attackers, it's nice to have that option. Then again, I think every deck should play 2 of each of these because these mitigate the randomness to your resource generation. Inspiration, if you roll your resource die for leadership was a 1, you can replace it with a 4, which is pretty good. And then you add 1 to your current supply. This one's the same thing. If you roll 1 for supply, turn it into a 4, add 1 to your leadership. And yeah, that is the deck. This deck plays out pretty... It's the same thing but different. You just... Instead of swarming the board with a bunch of characters and just kind of sitting there and then shooting things, because it's a lot safer to shoot characters in this game than it is to punch them, this one wants to play out like 3 or 4, and then wait till you have a turn where you can send all 3 or 4 at the same location and just punch through everything. And if your opponent's too afraid to send in blockers, then you're sacking the location. Once you sack all 3, it's game over. So this is a more like aggro-y aggressive build, where the other one is more of like a controlling build, I would say. And then my third deck is more of a defensive build, and instead of sending in like multiple attackers, you're getting one really good guy out who's really hard to bring into play and really hard to send anywhere. But then he goes in this Rex face. They all have a ton of health. They're very tanky. But I would say out of my decks, I do like my Witness deck a lot, but I think as far as like thematically goes, I like the artwork and everything else in my Witness deck. But as far as my actual like play style, this one is by far my favorite. I wish I knew what the other leaders did, but unfortunately you can only get leaders in the starter decks. And this is the only one I had for this, though I think I would choose this one anyway because I kind of like having the secondary theme of focusing on task rolls, which is exactly what this character does. But if you have any suggestions for this game, because I'm a noob at this game and I bought some random packs, random collections on eBay, and then built decks off of what I had. Feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll be posting this on the Dead CCG Facebook group as well. So if you're on there, feel free to comment on there too. But thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.